Hi everybody and welcome to Unit 2, where we're going to look at understanding the principles and values in health and social care that relate to adults, children's, young people, early years and childcare settings. This is part of your Level 1 Introduction to Health and Social Care with Plato training. So we are on for quite a long session today. So your aims and objectives for the session today are to know what the principles and values are that underpin work in health and social care, and know ways to respect and value people that access services in health and social care. As always, please keep your eye out for the green box in the top right hand corner. This will help you to answer the questions because it will tell you which question the slide is relating to. Some important words for this unit. So this is going to relate to all of your unit, just some important words to get you started here. So you'll see the term principles and values coming up a lot because that is the main focus of this unit. So principles and values, what that means is the main beliefs and ideas of an organisation. So in terms of what we're looking at today, principles and values are relating to health and social care. The next one says guidance and standards. So guidance and standards means the rules and guidelines that need to be followed in a workplace. Respecting and valuing. So towards the end of the unit, you're going to show how you're going to respect and value the service users using the underpinning principles and values. To enable you to understand what that means, respecting and valuing means to show care and consideration of others' views and opinions. So we're going to think about that service user. Person-centred practice. So when you are working in health and social care, childcare with young people, you should always be focusing on the person, the young person, the child. So what this means is listening to the person and meeting their individual needs in the way that is best for them. So it avoids us from treating everybody the same. Confidentiality. So you'll probably be more familiar with this term, so only sharing information with people that need to know or can offer help. Self-esteem. So we looked at self-esteem previously, and this means feeling good about yourself and feeling confident in yourself. So we're going to have a look at what principles and values are that underpin the work in care. So we all have different principles and values, and we learn those from people around us. So if you think about the way that you behave at home, some people will take their shoes off at the door, but others are quite comfortable walking around their house in shoes. Both of these examples are different, but it just depends on what is right for that individual. So in my house, I prefer shoes off. I don't like the outside coming into my house. I prefer to have clean floors. But for some people, like when I go to my mum's house, she's not bothered. I don't really know where I get it from. I think Actually, I do know where I get it from. I lived in a flat with very, very cream carpets and they didn't want to lose my deposit. So there you go. I had to think about that though. But there's no right or wrong way. It's just what is right for yourself and your family and your house and your life. So when we think about principles and values in health and social care, we need to follow the values and principles that are set from the place of work where we're in, and not our own principles and values. So if we think back to that previous example, if you are a shoes off household like me, you may wish to not walk around in your shoes, but obviously in the workplace you can't do that. It's against health and safety policy, so that's not going to work there. That's why it's so important that we follow the values and principles of the setting where we're working in and not our own values and principles. So there are many important values and principles in health and social care, and we need to understand these to make sure that we are working professionally, because these are going to underpin all of the work that you do. They're going to have a stand in everything that you do in care. And really what they're there for is to make sure that the service users, whether they're adults, young people or children, are there being cared for in the best way possible. So I've got some examples of the principles and values here. So I am going to work through these on the following slides after this slide. So we've got showing empathy, person or child-centered support, confidentiality, keeping that maintained, inclusion, finding out people's wishes, likes and dislikes, meeting all needs, safeguarding children and young people, safeguarding vulnerable adults, respecting people's culture and beliefs, communicating in a positive way, giving people choices. So these principles and values underpin everything you do in care. So these are like your sort of guidelines that you need to be following when you work in a care setting. So the first value and principle we're going to look at is showing empathy. So what does empathy mean? Empathy means the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. So when we are being empathetic, we are thinking about how that person may be feeling and trying to understand things from their perspective. It's different to sympathy. Sympathy is more about feeling sorry for the person, whereas empathy goes that bit deeper, where we're trying to really understand how they're feeling. How can we use empathy in health and social care? So you can listen, first of all, to your service users. Make eye contact when you're caring for them, show them that you are there. And you can ask them how they're feeling and obviously start a conversation from that. If they're saying they're in pain, you need to be able to say, obviously get a nurse to get some paracetamol or something, but you need to say, oh, I know it's been difficult for you at the moment, I'm here for you. Person-centered support. So we looked at this at the very start of the unit. So it is listening to the person and meeting their individual needs in a way that is best for them. So some examples of how you could use person-centered support in health and social care. Firstly, allowing them to be part of their own care plan. Let them have a voice in their care plan. Let them plan their own care. What do they want their care to be like? Perhaps you're working in a hospice and you're trying to pan out what that person would like from the rest of their months that they've got left to live. You know, what kind of activities do they enjoy? Do they want to be having their nails done and being pampered a little bit and made to feel sort of special in that way? Or would they rather be doing, when they've got the energy, some sort of more active activities? Ensuring that service users still have their human rights. So making sure they are being treated with dignity and respect, and making sure that they still have the right to complain. Help people to live as independently as possible by doing things they enjoy. So it could be that you are working in a care home and somebody particularly enjoyed playing tennis when they were sort of more able. There's nothing to stop you from using the courtyard outside and perhaps playing a bit of tennis out there. When I worked in a care home, there was a lady who had previously been a nurse, and she had dementia. She was the most settled when she was given a piece of paper and a clipboard, because she felt like she was at work. So that was being person-centered to her, because it's what she enjoyed. Allowing the service user to have choices. So this is everything. Examples like clothes, food, you know, where to sit, what to do. Everything about what they would like to do with their lives, from the day-to-day things to planning ahead. They're allowed to have choices. Confidentiality, so making sure that is maintained or kept. So what that means, again, we looked at this one at the start, so only sharing information with people who need to know or those who can offer further support. So we're not going to go home to our partners, our children, our mums, our dads and say, oh, Doris at the care home today, you should have heard what she said to me. No, it's not relevant. You know, people don't need to know what's been shared with you, what's happening. So how could you use this in health and social care? So you're going to keep information private because it maintains trust between you and the service user. It builds stronger relationships as well between your staff, so it can help the service user to open up, knowing that not everybody is going to find out. And it can help them to keep them safe from abuse as well. Inclusion. So inclusion is a bit of a funny word. Inclusion, the word comes from the word include. So what that word means is to accept all people, regardless of their age, their gender, disability, any medical needs, or any other differences they may have. So what it means is that everybody has the same opportunities. It doesn't mean that people will all be treated the same, because we need to respect those differences that people have and that they might need a bit more help than one another. So how could you use this in health and social care? So you could make activities as accessible as possible, so making sure the table is at the right height for a wheelchair. Sometimes when people use electric wheelchairs, they are particularly bulky and particularly high, and so the tables are often too low and the person can't get involved because they can't physically get to it. They're stuck sort of behind the table and they can't reach anything, so it's not accessible for them. So a way to ensure that they're included would be to make sure the tables are the right height, maybe get some adjustable tables. Another example would be allowing people in a care home to sit together at meal times if they wish to. There's nothing to stop you from asking people would they like to sit together. If they would, great. If they wouldn't, also great. But we're not going to exclude anybody from that opportunity. The next one, allowing young people to access education in college if they were previously denied because of their differences. So perhaps they were told, oh, you can't go to college because this, that and the other, you know, you've had problems in your life and it's not suitable for you. It's not the case. Everybody has the right to have the same opportunity. They might just need a bit of extra support to get there. Finding out wishes, likes and dislikes. So what does that mean? These are the preferences of the service user, and it really helps us to give that person-centred care that we looked at before. So how could we use these in health and social care? You could find out what they wish for the future. So perhaps you are working with somebody that would like to be stronger and less dependent. Perhaps you're working with somebody who's had a stroke and they are struggling to use the right side of their body, but they're right-handed and they would quite like to be able to become less dependent, and perhaps they're not able to build that strength back in their right side, but they could learn to do things with their left side which would make them stronger and less dependent. Just an idea there. Finding out what they like. So this could be, like I said before, like about tennis, it could be something like that, something that they enjoy. You could start a new activity based on a hobby that somebody had before. Perhaps people have been really into sort of painting with watercolours or something. It'd be quite nice to introduce a new activity based on hobbies that people in the care home previously had. You also need to find out what people's dislikes are. So we're not going to assume that everybody is going to want to join in with everything. Just like you and I, there'll be things that you don't enjoy or don't like to eat or drink and things, and that's perfectly fine. So we don't need to encourage something that people aren't interested or bothered about. Meeting all needs. So in order to meet all needs, we need to think about the activities of daily living. Okay, so the activities of daily living become the basis of a care plan for service users. So this is something that care homes, support work agencies, mental health hospitals will use to make sure that they are meeting all the needs of the person. So the activities of daily living are to maintain a safe environment, communication, breathing, eating and drinking, eliminating, that means toileting, personal cleansing and dressing, controlling body temperature, mobilising, working and playing, expressing sexuality, sleeping and dying. So I'll just talk a little bit more about these. So not everybody will have needs that need to be met in some of these activities of daily living. Okay, so maintaining a safe environment. Let's think about if you're working in a care home with people with dementia. In order to keep people safe with dementia in a care home, you need to make sure the doors are locked so that they're not able to just sort of wander out. They're normally on like a magnet lock with a either a buzzer or a key code on. Communication, so you're going to think uniquely, how can this person communicate? Perhaps they need you to speak slower, perhaps they need you to use shorter sentences. Breathing, so most people can still breathe on their own. This one will really come in when somebody is in hospital with a chest infection, or if they're ventilated, where they have a breathing tube in. So if that's normal, you'd just put normal. Eating and drinking, so you could put that they have a sort of an average diet, there's no special requirements there. It could be that the person is Muslim and they don't eat pork. Eliminating, so here is where you're going to talk about continence or incontinence. So if they have a normal regular bowel movement, that will be noted there. If they need a bedpan, if they need a commode, so a bedpan where they are going to go to the toilet in bed with two carers. A commode where it's like a wheelchair with a little slot underneath where there's a removable sort of toilet piece. It's hard to describe. But that's a commode, so those things would be noted there. If they don't have any problems with going to the toilet, you would just put normal continence there. Personal cleansing and dressing, so again, if we're thinking about people in a care home for people with dementia, they'll need varying levels of support. Some people might need a prompt, so you would put in their prompt to wash and dress. Some people would need more support depending on where they're at with their dementia. Controlling body temperature, that can be something as simple as helping somebody to recognise when they're too hot, like taking their jumper or their cardigan off, or if they're too cold, putting the jumper on, putting the cardigan on. People with dementia might not recognise that any longer, but again, it depends on the severity of the condition. Mobilising, so that's walking around, ability to go from sitting to standing on their own. That's going to be where you think about fall risk assessments as well. Are they going to be falling over? Working and playing, so what activities do they enjoy? What did they work as in the past? Expressing sexuality, so if they have a wife or a husband still who's alive, or perhaps they've passed away. But also remembering that just because somebody is in a care home doesn't mean they no longer have sexual needs. And so, for example, I worked in a care home where there was a gentleman that each morning he would be passed, we call them bottles, so normally it's where men would urinate in, but he would ask for the bottle for other reasons, and he would use that bottle and then just ring his bell when he was done. People still have the right to be able to do that as part of their human rights, obviously, to be able to express their sexuality. The next one's sleeping, so any considerations or concerns with sleeping would go in here. So if you're working with somebody with dementia, again, it might be that they are sometimes they're given sleeping tablets to stop them wandering at night. And the last one is dying. So what are their dying wishes? Perhaps they are religious and they have a particular need. Perhaps in their culture there's a different need. Something to think about there. So I hope I've explained that okay for you, the activities of daily living there. And of course these aren't just for care homes for the elderly, they are for health and social care across the board. Like I said, if it wasn't applicable, then you would just put not applicable or normal. Safeguarding children and young people. So safeguarding, what does it mean? It means protecting children from harm, abuse or neglect. How could you use this in health and social care? So you're going to report any concerns of safeguarding to the safeguarding officer. You're going to ensure that you keep up to date on your safeguarding training. You'll reassure the child, but you'll also have to tell them that you need to report it and you cannot promise to keep secrets. That is so important. With vulnerable adults, the same again, but service users this time. So a vulnerable adult is somebody over the age of 18 that has a disability or medical need where they need protecting from harm, abuse or neglect. Again, you need to report your concerns to the safeguarding officer. Make sure you keep up to date on your training. Reassure the service user, but again, tell them that you're going to have to report it and that you can't keep secrets. Respecting people's culture and beliefs. So what does this mean? So culture means the ideas and social behaviours of a particular group of people. So for example, Afro-Caribbean culture. And beliefs means religions they may have. So how can you ensure that you are respecting people's culture and belief in health and social care? So you need to make sure that you're trained in equality and diversity. You need to keep up to date on the changing attitudes. You can do this by reading books, watching documentaries, just keeping your mind active on the ever-changing sort of cultures and the way that the attitudes are changing. Like if we think about the BLM or the Black Lives Matter movement at the moment, that's a key example there. Remember that different cultures often have different practices. So some people, for example, don't make direct eye contact. Some people will nod their head for no and shake their head for yes. And you need to make sure that you're understanding what that person is saying. You need to ensure their diet reflects their needs, their wishes and their preferences, but also that it respects their cultural beliefs. Like some people won't eat pork, some people will perhaps be vegetarian. There are lots of differences that people could have in relation to diet. Communicate in a positive way. So what does this mean? If we are communicating positively, this means that we're giving messages in a positive way, even if the content is negative. So it's supportive and it's done with emotions. So how could you do this? You could speak clearly. You need to think about your tone of voice. You don't want to be monotone. Sounds a bit boring. You need to listen carefully. You need to have confidence in what you're saying, so you don't want to be doubting yourself. You need to be friendly. And you also need to think about your non-verbal communication, like your body language. So don't fold your arms because that's seen as very negative. Giving people choices. So choices meaning choosing between two or more possibilities. So this could be a choice of tea or coffee or a cold drink. It could be whether they would like to wear a jumper or a cardigan or a shirt that day. It's asking them, what would you like to do today? Where would you like to sit? Not just being the decision maker for them. So now I would like you to identify 6 or at least 6 of the principles and values that you need to work in health and social care. For each example, I would like you to use a supporting sentence to demonstrate your understanding of what the principle or value is. So I hope that was lots of information for you to take in. Please use those slides as inspiration, but do feel that you can use further examples if you would like to, or you may wish to do further research. Please pause this video here whilst you answer that question. Now we're going to look at the guidance and standards that support the principles and values that we've just looked at. So the guidance and standards are the rules that need to be understood to make sure that the values and principles are followed by everybody in the work setting. And this is whether you work with children, with young people, or with adults within health and social care. So the ones we're going to be looking at here are the Equality Act of 2010, the Early Years Foundation Stage, or the EYFS for short, which was brought out in 2017 or updated in 2017, the Health and Social Care Act of 2012, and the Care Act of 2017. We're also going to look at some codes of practice. So the ones we're going to look at are the General Social Care Council, the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities, or SEND for short, and the Nursing and Midwifery Council, or the NMC for short. So firstly, let's think about the Equality Act of 2010. So in 2010, the Equality Act brought together many different laws that link to equality, diversity, and treating people fairly. This law is there to protect people from discrimination, and it has many protected characteristics. Some of those are race, so you're protected from discrimination against your race, you're protected from discrimination against your age, your religion and beliefs, you're protected from discrimination about your disability, and you're also protected about your marital status or whether you're in a civil partnership, like a homosexual couple. The Early Years Foundation Stage, or the EYFS, these are guidelines for good practice that need to be followed to meet high standards in childcare. So this covers the ages of 0 to 5, and it's followed by most care settings for educating children during that age range. So it covers childminders, day nurseries, and nursery schools. So it sets out good practice as to what good standards in childcare are for people who work as childminders, people who work in day nurseries, and people who work in nursery schools. The Health and Social Care Act of 2012. This is about improving choices and standards of care available in health and social care. It supports professionals to work in a way that best meets the needs of individuals that are using the service. So that's whether the service is a care home for people with dementia, a care home for the elderly who perhaps have physical needs, a supported living environment for somebody with learning disabilities, a mental health secure unit. It covers all of those places to make sure that professionals are working in a way that best meets the needs of the individuals. So it relates very much to the person-centred care that we looked at in the values and principles. The Care Act 2012. This law encourages caregivers to take a person-centred approach when safeguarding vulnerable adults. So when people are working and caring for vulnerable adults, they're also safeguarding them, and the Care Act is there to make sure that the person-centred approach is being adhered to. So now we move on to the codes of practice. The General Social Care Council. This makes sure that care is professional by ensuring social care workers protect the rights of the service user. It says that staff are responsible for the quality of the care they give and that they must keep their skills up to date. The Nursing and Midwifery Council, or the NMC for short. This is for qualified nurses, but as you'll be working under qualified nurses, you will be able to see what the qualified nurses will be expected to do and what they're expecting of you. So they work by the 4 P's, and these are prioritising people, the people being your service users, practice effectively, so doing your job correctly, preserve safety, so maintaining that safe environment and safeguarding vulnerable adults, and promoting professionalism and trust. For question 2, I would like you to identify the standards and guidance that underpin the principles and values. So for this question, what I would like you to do is write the number of examples needed in part A and part B below, and then write a supporting sentence just to show your understanding of each example. And again, you can use my work on those previous slides as your inspiration. You don't need to go off and research laws because it is very heavy going. So your 4 items of guidance and standards for part A, and then a short sentence just to show what you understand about those guidance and standards. And then I just need 1 code of practice for England on part B. So you could choose, for example, the NMC there, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Please pause this video here while you complete that question. Respecting and valuing service users as individuals. So the guidance and standards that you just looked at previously are in place to make sure that when you're working in health and social care or in childcare, that everybody working is working in the same way that respects and values the needs and wishes of everybody, no matter who it is that you're working to support. So it is so important that people who use the services are valued as individuals so that they feel valued as people. So how can we show that we respect and value people as individuals? We could listen to their wishes. We could understand their needs. We could know what they like and what they dislike. And we can show that we value the service users' opinions. What effect can respecting and valuing service users as individuals have on that service user? So if we're able to value and respect that service user, it could make them feel more confident to make choices for themselves. They could feel like they have that voice so that they're able to continue making decisions for themselves. Just because somebody is receiving care for some aspects of their life doesn't mean that they have to rely on a care worker for everything in their lives. It could lead to more trusting relationships between service users and care workers. So if they know that they're being respected, they know that they can speak to their care worker, especially their key worker, about something that perhaps is bothering them or something that they would like to change about their care plan. And it helps the service user to feel more in control of their own lives. So think about yourself for a moment. If you were tomorrow, for whatever reason, something happened to you and you found yourself in 6 weeks' time living in care, relying on somebody to wash and dress you. You're at the age that you're at today, and in 6 weeks' time that's not going to change by much. You would still want to be in control of your own life. Perhaps you still want to scroll aimlessly on Instagram and Facebook before you go to sleep at night. I know that's what I end up doing. Perhaps you want to watch a horror movie on a Saturday night. Perhaps you want to get a takeaway on a Friday. You've got to allow the service user to feel more in control of their own lives to promote that independence and promote them to have good confidence levels. When people know that others are interested in their views and opinions, it makes them feel respected and valued. So I would like you to now answer question 3. Describe why professionals working in the sector should value individuals who access services. So I'd like you to develop a paragraph of about 3 to 4 sentences here to answer this question. You can give examples like I did about perhaps relating it back to yourself. What would you like? So how could professionals support you and value yourself? Because that shows your understanding of why it's important for the individuals that you'll be working with. Pause this video to answer this question. Let's think about some ways to value adults in health and social care. So we're just thinking about adults at the moment. So to value an adult, I would give them time to speak and I would listen to them. By giving them time to speak, I'm not going to be talking over them or talking for them. And by listening carefully, I'm going to make sure that I've heard what they've said and understood it. I would also communicate with them in a way that suits their needs. So I would be valuing them by allowing them to communicate with me and for me to communicate with them in a way that suits them. Perhaps they have had a stroke and they have weak muscles in their mouth and they struggle to pronounce words. So perhaps they speak slowly and but want you to speak at normal pace because they can hear perfectly well. They just struggle to get the words out themselves. I would like you to now research 2 more ways to value adults that access services in health and social care. So now you should have 4 examples of ways to value adults that access services in health and social care. Please pause this video to answer question 4. Now we're going to think about ways to value children or young people in health and social care. So I've got two ways here, providing activities that they're interested in. So there's no use trying to encourage a child to play with dolls if they're not interested in playing with dolls. You're not going to be able to form a relationship with them by trying to play dolls with them if they're not bothered. Instead, if they're interested in playing with dinosaurs, then play with dinosaurs with them. Play with something that they enjoy. The same is with young people. So if we think about teenagers, if you're trying to relate to a teenager and you're trying to talk to them about perhaps a band or a celebrity that you're aware of, that you think, oh, they might like this person, and they're really not interested in what you're saying, perhaps you're talking about the wrong genre of music and they're not at all bothered about it, then you need to get back down to their level. What do they like to listen to? Provide some activities around that instead. Ask for opinions and give them choices. So you need to do this with children, asking, what would you like to play with today? Would you like to have a sandwich or pasta? With young people, it could be asking them, what time would you like to go to bed? And trying to work with them on a sensible time, but allowing them to feel like they're in control, even though you're going to suggest probably a bit of an earlier time if they're suggesting midnight and they've got school the next day. I would like you to now research two more ways that you could value children and or young people who access services in health and social care. That should lead you on to question 5, so you should be able to give 4 examples of how to value children and young people who access services in health and social care. Person-centred practice. So you've heard me talk about person-centred practice a lot. So it's about listening to the person's needs, their wishes, their likes and dislikes, and understanding the importance of meeting their individual needs that's right for them, so making their care unique. By making person-centred care unique, and by using the person-centred practice or child, if you're working with children, the needs and choices of the individual are seen as really, really important. So they're really at the most importance of when you're working in care. It's one of the most important aspects. I'd probably say second to safety. It's really different not having person-centred practice, because when you don't have person-centred practice, it may be that the service user, yes, they get washed, yes, they get dressed, yes, they get fed, and yes, they're provided with activities. It doesn't mean to say that they are having a happy time, really, does it? Because yes, they're washed and dressed, perhaps by 7 AM when they used to get up at 8 or 9. Perhaps they've had Weetabix for breakfast, but they always had toast when they lived at home. Maybe they've been given coffee with it, but actually they prefer a cup of tea in the morning. Maybe they've been given the task of flower arranging, but they've never arranged a flower in their lives and they'd rather listen to music. We've got to make sure that the care that we give meets the individual's needs, because otherwise life would be not very happy, would it? It's the same with children, so child-centred practice is the same as person-centred practice. It's where the individual care and learning needs of children are met in a way that's best for them. So I've got an example for you here. A doctor in a hospital asks a child if they want their medicine in liquid form or tablet form. They could have either, both are suitable. By allowing that child to make their own decision and have that choice, the doctor is valuing the opinion of the child and respecting their wishes, rather than just asking the parent. Obviously it depends on the age of the child, but it would be nice if your child was asked, would you like a tablet or medicine? Some troubleshooting for your person-centred care. So sometimes you do have to think outside of the box. If you're working in a nursing home where every service user needs personal care, but some staff have called in sick, you might need to think of different ways to meet their individual needs to get them ready in time for breakfast that's being served in the lounge. So, for example, you might only have time to clean one area of each person's body before getting them in the lounge for breakfast. So which area would you clean? In the classroom, I would be asking you around the room, which area would you prefer to be cleaned? Some people would say face, some people would say down below, some people would say hands, I'm going to eat with my hands, some people say arms or their neck if they get particularly sweaty. There's no right or wrong answer here because we all have our own needs and wishes. I think for me, I would say face. I've got particularly oily skin and overnight I wear a lot of night cream and I just need to get some water on my face to get that off. For other people, they would say hands because they're about to eat with their hands. So personal care, it needs to be person-centred. Personal care is a broad term that is used to refer to supporting with personal hygiene, toileting, dressing and maintaining the general personal appearance. It can cover things like bathing and showering, including bed baths where somebody stays in bed, where they are washed from the bed. Privacy and dignity. So what do these mean? Privacy is giving someone space where and when they need it. So if somebody says, I want to go to my room, you don't need to say why. They have that choice to make. That's their own choice. I want to go to my room. I want to be left in peace. You don't need to say why. Sometimes people don't want to tell you why. They just want to get away. Dignity. So dignity is focusing on the value of every individual, like respecting their views, their choices and their decisions. Not making assumptions about how they want to be treated. Maybe you're working with a person that's got multiple sclerosis or MS for short, where they're losing the ability to use their muscles, so they're struggling to use their legs and their arms. If you've worked with somebody with MS before, you don't want to be making assumptions that the new person that you're working with wants to be treated exactly the same. You need to work with care and compassion, and you need to communicate directly with the individual where possible. So you don't want to talk over somebody. If you're working with another carer, you don't want to be talking about what happened last Saturday night when you both went out for a drink together. You want to be engaging yourself and your conversation with the service user. Privacy and dignity are at the centre of a person's well-being. So you should get to know the individual, you should get to know their background, their ideas and their wishes and likes and dislikes. You should provide personalised care and support that puts the individual at the centre of that care. You should enable them to be as independent as possible. And you should work in ways that reduce the risk of an individual being treated in a way that's degrading or harmful. So how do we respect that person's privacy? Here's some general examples of what you should do to protect their privacy. So always ask individuals before touching them in any way. Our bodies are private. We're taught that even young children call their down belows their privates, don't they? Knock on the door or speak before you enter. Don't just assume that you're allowed to go into their room because it's your workplace. That's their place of residence. That is where they live. You wouldn't like it if somebody just walked into your house. If your role involves supporting individuals to wash or dress, make sure that you do the basic things like closing the curtains. Make sure screens or doors are properly closed so that that person isn't being exposed. You should always make sure that the clothing or the hospital gowns should be arranged in a dignified way. So you may have seen it for yourselves, the gowns in a hospital. For some reason, people don't do them up properly. There are 2 laces, not just one. And for some reason, people only do one up, and that exposes people's bottoms. If you do the second lace up, it doesn't expose their bottom because it ties to the inside, just like a wrap over dress would, or a... So how do we promote dignity? To promote this, the individuals, the service users, should be fully involved in any decision that affects their care including things like what to wear and what to eat, what time they wish to go to bed, but also things about their care and support. Sometimes people might struggle to be able to make a decision or to physically communicate their choice. This is where the Mental Capacity Act would come in to help them to make decisions. The individual might be able to make those sort of day-to-day decisions about what they would like to wear or what they would like to eat, but they might no longer have the mental capacity to think about money or medical issues. So a lack of privacy and dignity, some key examples here. A lack of thought being given to helping people with their personal appearance. So yes, you might have got the person washed, and yes, you might have got them dressed, but maybe their outfit entirely clashes and they don't quite look right. Maybe I worked in a hospital on a ward, and people were very lazy at doing the ladies' hair, and instead of making their hair look as the ladies would like it, instead they gave them all the same sort of comb over. Very institutionalized. Attachment of labels to older people. So in hospitals you hear the words bed blockers, and what that means is people that are waiting to go into a care home but there's a bit of a hold up with the social workers arranging it. Or geriatrics or gerries, the gerry ward. They're used as almost like derogatory terms, not very nice terms. Another example of a lack of privacy and dignity is exposing the patient's naked body to strangers or patients when using a hoist. So when you use a hoist, which is a piece of equipment to lift a person out of their bed and into a chair or vice versa, they do have to open their legs quite wide because they need to be either side of the sling. The sling is what they sit in, so this can result in a patient being quite exposed. So you need to think about the environment. Are the curtains closed? Can people see in? Not asking the person how he or she would like to be addressed. So perhaps you're working with a lady called Doris Wilson, but she would like to be called Mrs. Wilson, or maybe she'd like to be called Sally. Mixed sex wards. So in hospital, at times of sort of very busy periods, you might have men and women sharing the same bay. Where there's 6 beds in a bay, you might have 3 ladies and 3 men. It's not appropriate. You're meant to have single sex bays on the ward just to promote that privacy and dignity. A lack of thought being given to the gender of the carer. So perhaps you're working with an Asian lady who's only allowed or would prefer to have ladies take her to the toilet, but she's been allocated a male carer for the day. Mixing tablets into food is another key example of a lack of dignity. If the person has the capacity to decline their tablets, you're not to mix it in the food. It is their choice. You should never mix tablets into food. I have here a video clip from a lady called Sophie Wilson. So Sophie is a young lady and she broke her neck. She was on holiday, I think it was Thailand, and she damaged her spinal cord, so she has paralysis. Sophie's video shows you the importance of promoting independence when providing care, because she's come a very long way. It's really, really important for you to get your head around focusing on what the person can do rather than what they can't do, or rather than just doing everything for them. I've put the clip on your Word document, so I would like you to click that link and watch it. I'll also put it in the description bar at the bottom here. Please do take the time to watch this. So we've got some scenarios to go through. What I would like you to do is just make some notes on each of these scenarios and then decide how you could give person-centred support to adults, children and young people. Just notes, don't go ahead and write lots of paragraphs here. It's just to get your head around providing the person or child-centred support. So Abdul is your first scenario. So Abdul is living in the community and he needs daily home care as he has a physical disability. He also uses a wheelchair. Abdul needs support with his personal care, however he cannot be washed or dressed by a person of the opposite sex. Abdul is Muslim and likes to pray 3 times a day, but he can't get on the floor any longer on his prayer mat because he's got a physical disability. So think about ways that Abdul could be respected and valued by the care staff. Just make some notes. Jack is a resident at Crescent Care Home. John is his birth name, but he likes to be known as Jack. Jack has specific dietary requirements and he's also vegetarian. He has a nut allergy. Can you think of ways that staff could show respect and value Jack? Just make some notes here, doesn't need to be much. Pause this video whilst you do it. Anne is a resident at Bredbury Care Home. Anne used to be a head teacher before she retired and has since developed dementia. Anne can be very bossy due to her past career and she shouts a lot thinking she's at school. The staff often ask if they can leave Anne in the room because she's so disruptive. Think about ways that staff can show that they respect and value Anne. Make some notes. Pause this video here. Adam attends Sunday Nursery. He's 3 years old. Adam often gets angry and hurts other children. He also hits out at staff and there does not appear to be any triggers of this. The parents of the other children often complain about his behaviour. Some of the staff feel that Adam should be excluded and have one-to-one play in another room. Give examples of ways that staff could show they respect and value Adam. Make some notes and pause this video here whilst you do so. A school is running a summer fair to raise funds and everybody is invited to contribute to the stalls. Ali, Mohammed and Nargis want to come, but their parents are concerned that there'll be egg in the cakes that are provided by the other parents, and therefore want a notice sending out to the other parents that all cakes must be egg-free in line with their religious dietary requirements. They said it would be unfair otherwise, as their children couldn't attend if the cakes contain egg. Give examples of ways that staff can show they respect and value Ali, Mohammed and Nargis and their parents. Make some notes and pause this video here whilst you do so. So let's have a think about those scenarios that we just looked at. With Abdul, Abdul is entitled to have a carer who is the same sex to wash and dress him. Adaptations would need to be made so that he can pray. For example, he could sit on a chair to pray. Jack has the right to be given food that meets his dietary requirements. This includes vegetarian and the need to ensure that he is not given anything that could affect his nut allergy because this could be fatal. The staff need to ensure that in his care plan people are aware that he likes to be referred as Jack rather than John. Anne, the head teacher, should not be left in her room. She may need a care worker to sit with her at times, but she should be included. We looked previously at the word inclusion. Adam. So Adam may need some additional support. He'll need to be assessed by an outside agency to see what additional support might be needed to support his development, but he shouldn't be excluded from the other children. Mohammed, Ali and Nargis and their parents need some reassurance. The school will need to ensure that the ingredients of all the food is labelled to cater for anyone that does have an allergy or a difference in what they prefer for certain types of foods. For question 6, I would like you to outline what is meant by person-centred practice or child-centred practice. So to outline, we're looking for you to write in sentences and develop a paragraph of around 2 to 3 sentences. I've given you lots of information on person-centred practice, so you may need to go back and just have another think about what we've covered for this question. Please pause this video whilst you complete it. So we're now going to expand our knowledge on the person-centred approach to when we're working with people with dementia. So putting the person at the centre of your practice is an essential part of any work that you do in health and social care. But when people have dementia, it is even more important. Person-centred working is about looking at what people's needs, wishes, likes and dislikes are, but also what their strengths are, and looking what they can do, rather than looking at what they've lost. We also need to think about seeing the world from the perspective of the person with dementia, because dementia can make the world seem like a whole different place. Recognising the person as an individual means using that person-centred approach. So treating people as individuals, helping them to make choices, supporting them to be as independent as possible, and treating them with privacy and respect. When you're working with somebody with dementia, the reason that we use the person-centred approach is because then they are still treated as people, because people have wants and wishes and needs, and people are not just a collection of symptoms that need to be managed. Whereas if you just think about the person and their dementia, you are just focusing on the dementia as their only need. The person-centred approach can help to build up a person's self-esteem. If the person is confident enough and able enough to help to build their own support and care plan, then we can find it easier to focus on what the person can do rather than what they have lost the ability to do. If people with dementia can enjoy activities they used to before they had dementia, they're going to have a much more fulfilled life. If they have a more fulfilled life and they're very busy during the day, they're going to sleep less during the day, and so nighttime sleeping will improve because of this, which is going to stop people from wandering around at night. So you can see how the person-centred approach is really going to help the person with dementia, because we're concentrating on what they can do, not what they can't, and what they do enjoy, so that they are busy and they're able to sleep better at night. Recognising and valuing an individual with dementia as a person first. So dementia is not the same for everybody, and it's important to recognise and value an individual with dementia as a person, because not every person with dementia will need the same type of care. Support needs to be sensitive, and it needs to focus on meeting the well-being and the needs of the individual. And remember, people with dementia have the same equal rights as everybody else. Let's think about person-centred care plans. So, finding out information. Ask the person that you're caring for what they want. The person should always be at the centre of their care plan. Ask families, partners, friends for more information. Perhaps their memory is making them struggle to answer some of the questions, or perhaps it's too much to talk about all in one go. You need to try and build a bigger picture by asking for the support of others. The more information that you have, the more person-centred care their care can be. So with their needs, their wishes, their likes and dislikes, we can find things that may trigger poor or restricted behaviour. We can find out routines, so what did they like doing? If we change things, it might have problems or adverse effects. The preferred method of communication. We're going to look at communication in a bit more detail. If we use Makaton, but a person signs with British Sign Language, it would be like speaking Spanish to an English person. If you're unfamiliar with Makaton, Makaton is a basic form of sign language that has been created by people that can hear, and the signs symbol the word, whereas British Sign Language is a language on its own. You need to build a history of the person if they can no longer do that for themselves. So like I said before, you need to ask the friends, the family and any other carers what they can tell you about their service user, what they like and what they dislike and what their routines are like. What do they like to do at 10 o'clock? What do they like to do at 12 o'clock? Think about their history. What were they like as a what were they like as a child? What were they like during their working years? Where did they work? Did they have any children? Do they have any grandchildren? Are they an auntie or an uncle? If you can paint a picture of the person that you're caring for, this is going to add value to the care that you provide for that service user. So as well as consulting the family and friends of the service user, when you are communicating with the person, with the individual with dementia, you need to think about using acceptable language. So using words that are easily understood and not making sort of acronyms and things like, I think earlier I said BLM instead of Black Lives Matters. We don't want to be using acronyms, we need to be using the full terms and words. Think about cultural needs, like they may have forgotten their own religion or they may have forgotten their own cultural needs, but this is part of who they are and that needs to be respected. You need to promote well-being of the service user always. You need to match them to a key worker who they can relate to. So perhaps they were mad into football all the way through their lives and there's a care worker who loves football. There's going to be some familiar ground there and that's going to really help to build that strong relationship that you'll need. Ensure you set routines and give clear instructions and ensure that you communicate effectively. The routine needs to match the service user, so if they always went to bed at 10:30, then they can continually go to bed at 10:30. There's no need to try and force somebody to go to bed at 8 o'clock because that's when the night staff come in to take over. That's not person-centred care, that's about making lives easier for care staff. So I've got another scenario for you here. Caitlin. So Caitlin is 88 and she has Alzheimer's disease. She lives in a care home for people with dementia. Caitlin is in the middle stages of the disease and has symptoms including memory problems, forgetting where she is and being suspicious of others. Caitlin sometimes thinks she's at the shop and she gets a handbag from her room and tells staff that she's nipping out. She often asks for paper and a pen to write a list of things she needs. Caitlin puts things in her pockets that are not hers and gets upset when staff take them back from her. She thinks the staff are stealing from her. Caitlin does not like to be told what to do, especially with personal care and dressing. She says she can look after herself and doesn't need help, and tells staff they're trying to control her by choosing her clothes, and tells them that she isn't stupid. Caitlin neglects her personal hygiene though, and needs to be reminded to wash. So let's look at a contrast of person-centred care versus non-person-centred care. So for person-centred care, Caitlin's handbag will be hung in her bedroom so she can easily find it. Whereas in non-person-centred care, Caitlin's handbag will be kept in her wardrobe so her room looks neat and tidy. In person-centred care, Caitlin's handbag will contain a notepad and a pencil so she can make a shopping list. In non-person-centred care, Caitlin can have paper but cannot have a pen or pencil in case she uses it as a weapon because they might be sharp. The staff will write the list for her. In person-centred care, staff will ask Caitlin if she has an item in her pocket and if they can have it, rather than just taking it from her. They will ask again if she says no. In non-person-centred care, Caitlin's pockets will be stitched up so she cannot place things in the pockets that do not belong to her. This will stop her stealing. In person-centred care, Caitlin will choose clothes each day. She'll be given a bowl of water to give a chance to get herself ready. She'll be provided with encouragement to empower her rather than being washed by staff. In non-person-centred care, Caitlin needs full support with washing and dressing each day as she does not look after her own personal hygiene. If she complains, staff must tell her that she needs it as she does not look after herself anymore. So you can see the huge contrast between person-centred care and non-person-centred care. On the right-hand side, the non-person-centred care side, you can see that the staff are working in a way that makes it easier for them. Whereas in person-centred care, they are empowering Caitlin and listening to her wishes and her needs and her likes. So how might Caitlin feel if she is treated in the person-centred manner? So if she's treated with the person-centred care, she'll feel confident and empowered and cared for and safe. Whereas in the non-person-centred care, she might feel that she's in danger, that she's not cared for or respected, or worse, she might feel quite worthless and like staff are just against her. She wouldn't be settled. For question 7, I would like you to outline why it is important to recognise and value an individual with dementia as a person first. To outline, please make sure that you write in full sentences and develop a paragraph of at least 3 sentences. You can also think back to the person-centred approach that you did on question 6. Confidentiality in health and social care. So confidentiality means keeping private information safe and only sharing this information with people who need to know, for example, those who are involved in health and care needs of children and adults. So this is one of the principles and values that we looked at back in question 1. So what is confidentiality? In adult settings, it means the carer should keep details secret between themselves and the service user. This means that the carer shouldn't tell anyone what a service user has said or the details other than those that need to know unless somebody is in danger. And this is the same in children's and young people's settings as well. So confidentiality is kept when people working in health and social care and childcare know how to keep information private. And this could be done by using a password on a computer, locking information in a cupboard. You might need to know about a person's family background, health or financial situation when you're working in health and social care, and that's why it's so important that they can always trust you with their personal information. So confidentiality means the practitioner should keep a confidence between themselves and the patient as part of a good care practice. So it's one of your everyday expectations of you in care work. And this means that you shouldn't tell anyone what a patient has said or their details other than when people need to know or when people are in danger. It's an important principle that enables people to feel safe in sharing their concerns and asking for help. So perhaps they've, soiled themselves. They don't want everybody to know, and you talking about it on the bus, on the way home, on the phone. So confidentiality is not unconditional, and there are limits as to what we can keep secret, because when we think about safeguarding, you need to share information with the right people at the right time to make sure that service users are protected under safeguarding laws. So although we can keep information secret, the limitations of our confidentiality come in when somebody is in danger. So for question 8, what I would like you to do is to define the word confidentiality in the context of adult, young people, early years and childcare sectors. What I need you to do is make sure that you do write about all those different sectors. So you need to say that your definition of confidentiality relates to adult care, young people's care, early years and children's care. I would also like you to try and get in there about the limitations of confidentiality. So that's where we're thinking about what we can't keep secret and who would need to tell when it comes to safeguarding. What are the benefits of confidentiality and why is it a good thing for people in care? So it builds trust because people or service users feel they can talk to you, they can trust you. It makes people feel safe in their care. They know their details, their data, any other opinions that they have are not going to be handed out and judged. It makes people feel confident in you, and it supports that relationship that you have with your service users. You want them to trust you because you are a professional. It shows that you understand the individual's wishes. It shows that you follow those values and principles that we looked at in question 1. And it allows people to decide what information is shared with others. If they ask you not to say anything, then you won't, unless there is a danger. So for question 9, we're just on an identify here. So identify how confidentiality promotes respect for and values individuals. You must include 4 examples in your answer. So for identify, what you can do is you can write your 4 examples in a list, and next to each example just write a short sentence just to show your understanding of how that example promotes respect and values the individual. Thank you for watching today's very long video. You should now have achieved your aims and objectives.